Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
It's done.
Connor McDavid! It's not real!
The goal of the year,
Panarin!
part of the past. The celebrations, forgotten. The history,
Vegas Golden Knights!
history. We're back to a blank slate. Clean ice. All that matters now is what happens next. The Stanley Cup playoffs.
Eastern Conference Final begins Wednesday.
Welcome to Women's Hoops and Talks, the What podcast, where we are elevating the voice of women in basketball. I'm Tara.
And I'm Cassidy. Thank you so much for listening today. We've got a great show coming up. We're going to check back in with some people who had the top draft picks in last season's draft.
And before we get started with that, let's just quickly remind everyone that you can follow the Hoops and Talks podcast on Twitter at Hoops and Talks, and you can subscribe to the show in the Blazers Edge podcast feed on whatever platform you use to get your podcasts. Cassidy, how are you doing today?
I am doing okay. My voice is cutting in and out.
Yeah, you're sounding a little raspy today. What have you been up to?
Well, this weekend I spent about 30 hours volunteering for first Lego League robotics tournaments for 9 to 14-year-old kids. And at those tournaments, I'm on microphone a good amount of the time, pumping up the kids, like getting everybody excited about the robots and doing the ceremonies. So my voice is not quite there tonight.
Okay, wait. I know this is a basketball podcast, but I need you to paint folks a picture of a robotics tournament. I've seen a billion robotics tournaments, but I don't know if everybody else has. So would you indulge me if your voice lasts long enough and just explain kind of what happens at the first Lego League state championship tournament?
Yeah, so it's a pretty exciting program for 9 to 14-year-olds where they build a Lego robot that does an obstacle course that's based on year's theme. And each team builds a robot. It does the obstacle course in 2.5 minutes, and it's all autonomous, which means it's all programmed, so there's no remote controls. And the kids also have to go through a series of interviews to talk about their robot, talk about their teamwork, and also a project, kind of like a science fair project that they do that helps solve a problem with an innovative solution. And so it's pretty excited. We call it Sports of the Mind.
And what is your role during the whole weekend?
I am the MC for the event. So I am on mic doing some play-by-play. I have some play-by-play announcers that are great. And then I talk a lot during the ceremonies, making sure everybody is informed about what's going on. So it's a lot of me talking on a microphone.
So you're like the Mark Mason of the first Lego League in Oregon.
Yes, I'd say there's a lot of my calls that are very much Mark Mason inspired as well. So definitely inspired by my fellow Blazer people.
That's awesome. Well, there's so many STEM programs out there, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I've noticed that the NBA has been getting involved in like science and technology, which only makes sense because the league, even though, it's a physical activity, every year there's more and more technology that is part of the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's like NBA, like the NBA has like a math competition, and I think they have a hackathon. And some of these things are for kids. Some of them are for people in college who are like pursuing degrees in these particular fields. But I love one of the things that I've loved about basketball with my kids when they were little was the sneaky math that I could make them do.
My dad did a lot of that with me for sure.
Yeah, like, hey, what's the score? Oh, how many points are the Blazers up? Or how many points do the Blazers need to score to take the lead? How many 3-pointers would that be? Yeah. My kids eventually saw through it. They were like, Mom.
Come on. We get it. Yeah. Well, and then you've got players with technical degrees. Like Damian Lillard has his degree is technically a technical degree from an engineering school, I believe.
That's right. It's like engineering communication or technical communication or something like that.
I think it's some kind of technical communication sales, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And then
really
Chris
cool.
Bosh was really for a couple years, and I think he still is, pushing the whole everybody can learn how to code, at least, to some degree. So that's really cool. And then, of course, all the guys down in Silicon Valley who are, tech entrepreneurs or looking at being tech entrepreneurs. I know every summer the NBA has program, or the NBPA, the Players Association, has like internships that players can do and go spend a day at Facebook, go spend a day at Google. I know Al Farouk Aminu has done a couple of those. So yeah, even though it's very different from basketball, it's a sport, and it's also something that uses your mind. And I think like I was saying earlier, the more every year that goes by, there's more technology involved, and there's more of a need to understand how all of that works in order. And we get to do things like make cool data visualizations and understand how things like that. If you learn how to program computers, or if you learn how to like program the cameras that are in the ceiling taking pictures of all the games, there's just a ton of stuff. So your work volunteering for First Lego League is an awesome contribution. Maybe not directly to basketball, but I'm sure that in the audience somewhere or participating, there was some kid who is going to go on to like do something that makes a difference in the sports world too. Thank you for your volunteering at the tournaments. Well, let's go ahead and reintroduce the topic that you brought up earlier. We are going, like about 6 months ago, I talked to folks from the fan bases who had the first 4 picks of last year's draft and wanted to find out like what their expectations were going into the season. One of the interesting things about last year is that Luka Doncic was picked 3rd, and a lot of people wanted their team to pick him. And, obviously Dallas got him, but we talked to folks from Phoenix and Sacramento. So we were able to ask them the very uncomfortable question, how's everybody feeling about not having Luka Doncic? But I don't know. I would say that both people that we talked to indicated that people are pretty satisfied with the picks that they have, even if they're not Luka Doncic.
And there's always the coulda, shoulda, woulda factor, and you never know who's going to fit in where. So,
and there's always going to be some people who just never let it go. This is how.
Yeah.
Well, so for the number 1 pick, Phoenix, Arizona picked DeAndre Ayton. And I got a chance to talk to Gina Mizell. She writes for The Athletic. And since she'd never been on the program before, I also asked her a little bit about her background and how she ended up covering the Suns for The Athletic. She did spend a little bit of time in Oregon before she went back down to Phoenix, which was where she grew up. Had an interesting conversation with her, getting to know a little bit more about DeAndre Ayton. One of the interesting things down there is they also have a first-time NBA head coach. Their coach, Kokoskov, has been around the NBA, and he's been I believe he was a head coach over in Europe, but he never had an NBA head coaching position before. So they've got the number 1 pick and a new NBA coach, and they're just all sort of learning how to get it all together, with the idea that they're kind of all hopefully going to be in this for the long run together. So they're just sort of right now this year kind of they're trying to establish patterns and good habits. So let's go ahead and run my talk with Gina Mizell of The Athletic. Gina, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show and join us today. Really glad to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Always pleased and happy to talk to people from Portland, my old stomping ground. So it's great to be here.
Right on. Well, since this is your first time on Women's Hoops and Talks, could you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up in Phoenix covering the Phoenix Suns?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just started covering the Suns for The Athletic, which obviously is a pretty new media adventure for a lot of us, but has expanded rapidly. And our Arizona site just launched right after Labor Day. So it's been a pretty, new opportunity for me, but have really, really enjoyed just the freedom and the ability to tell really cool stories and to sort of be on the cutting edge and trying to figure things out at a brand new company that's rapidly expanding. But as far as my journey, I grew up in Phoenix, so this was an opportunity to come back to my hometown and be close to my family and work in the media market that I grew up consuming, which has been a thrill, but took a little while to get back here. I graduated from Arizona State in 2010 from the Cronkite School, and then worked at a small newspaper just outside of Houston. Worked at the Oklahoman in Oklahoma City, covering Oklahoma State football for about 2.5 years. Then moved to Portland and covered Oregon State football and other things for the Oregonian from 2014 to 2017. Then got my opportunity to cover the NBA last year. I was hired to cover the Denver Nuggets for the Denver Post and did that for a year. Was having a great time in Denver, loved my time there. And then, of course, when your hometown comes calling, especially at such a great new adventure that I believe so much in with what The Athletic is doing and just the opportunity, I had to take it. So yeah, moved back to Phoenix in September and have been doing this job for, the past 4 months or so since the season started.
Oh, great. Now, since you have returned to your hometown, and I guess now I don't know my colleges in Arizona as well as I should. Did you also go to college in Phoenix, or did you go in a different?
Yeah. I went to Arizona State University, to the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. So shout out to them and their awesome training. So yeah, I lived in Phoenix I was born here and, lived here until I was 22 and then left for 8 years basically, and kind of got to see a lot of different, parts of the country and experience a lot of different stuff. And it's like I said, it's a thrill to be able to come back and work in this market, but also coming back with like some different perspective than I, would have had if I had stayed here the whole time. So thankful for all parts of the journey and obviously the opportunity to come back here.
Right on. Now, when you returned to Phoenix, or maybe while you were in college, did you meet any of the people that you remembered listening to or watching when you were growing up in town? And what was that like?
Yeah, it's wild because I actually, now I work alongside some of those people. It's really crazy. I mean, when I was in high school, and I shared this story when someone starts at The Athletic, you kind of write this intro piece about why you joined and kind of what it means to you. And the kind of story or anecdote that I shared is that, I grew up watching and listening to all sports, but of course the Phoenix Suns, and their play-by-play broadcaster, Al McCoy, is like a legend, not just in Phoenix, but like he's one of the most well-known radio broadcasters in the country and in the league. And so when I was in high school, we were doing some sort of project. I was on my school newspaper staff, and we were doing something like behind the scenes type thing. And through a classmate and friend's connection, I actually got to interview Al McCoy when I was like 16 or 17 years old. And so to now sit behind him like on press row in Phoenix and to like be in the same space and that he like says hi to me every day and knows who I am is pretty wild. So that's probably my best example. But no, I mean, there are people out here that, I grew up reading, that I grew up watching them on TV, that, I've gotten to know either, like you said, while I was in college or just as my career has progressed. And like I said, to sort of be amongst them again and to be colleagues and friends with some of these people now is one of the most gratifying things that's ever happened to me in my life. That sounds really big, but it's true. It's one of the, I sort of, sort of feel like, okay, I accomplished something. I'm back here working in the place that I grew up consuming sports media and falling in love with sports. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I owe a lot of thanks to a lot of people for that, but that's really been something that's been very, very cool. A very cool part of being back here.
That's really cool. Your parents and friends must be so excited to read your coverage.
Oh yeah, they totally are. And it's funny because I've had a couple instances where because I'll go on the radio like pretty regularly or things like that, just do hits here and there. And I'll have like friends like text me and be like, hey, I just heard you on, one of the stations. And they're like, have you like always done that? And I'm like, yeah, kind of, just in different cities. Doing it in Portland or doing it in Denver or in Oklahoma City or things like that. So to have more people to sort of share in that experience as far as, friends and family who have, who've known me since I was a kid and that I've grown up around, to kind of have them experience that is pretty cool. And I was actually on the pregame show, the TV pregame show a couple weeks ago. And like, of course, as any mom would do, my mom like sat there and like videotaped the whole thing with her phone. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is such a silly, but like she was really proud. And that was, again, very, very gratifying, just as, again, somebody, my mom and I, we'd sit there and watch Suns games together while I was a kid. And so for her to like see me on the set and talking to the, Tom Chambers and Tom Leander, who's their main TV guy, like to see them do that, to see me up there, I know was like a really cool moment for her. And obviously that in turn made it a very cool moment for me. So no, it's been really, really gratifying and really thrilling just to, be back in this market, just because of the people who kind of get to share in it with you after sort of being on my own for the past almost 10 years. I was sort of doing my own thing. So now I feel like I have some more people to share and all that stuff with, which is really, really awesome.
Super cool. Well, let's turn to talking about the team a little bit, although I super want to talk about Tom Chambers because I had a total crush on him when I was younger. But I got to stay focused. We'll save that for another time.
Yeah,
Deal?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So Phoenix Suns had the number 1 pick, and they chose DeAndre Ayton, which wasn't a huge surprise, I don't think, to a lot of people, although there were a couple of other draftees who were out there that some people may have thought that they would have chosen. But so how is the DeAndre Ayton experience going in Phoenix?
So far, I think so good, at least, if you take kind of the broader perspective, certainly I think any team that passed on Luka Doncic, there's going to be a segment of the fan base that is irate about not having him, on your team, just because of the way he's sort of taken the league by storm and has been so great as far as, his clutch shots and just his dazzling highlights, and people are making songs about him and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I mean, DeAndre Ayton's been super productive for this team so far. He's been a double-double machine. I think, there were obviously questions about his defense coming into his rookie season, and you've definitely seen some deficiencies on that end of the floor, but you've also seen some growth on that end of the floor as well. And so I think the biggest question with DeAndre Ayton versus Luka Doncic is, I think everybody thought that Luka was the most pro-ready prospect in the draft, just because he had obviously been an MVP in the EuroLeague and has tons of professional experience and all of that, where, I think some people believe still that Ayton has a higher ceiling and will be the best player in 5 years or whatever kind of measurable you want to use. So that's obviously, remains to be seen, and we'll see how that all pans out. But, overall, I think Ayton's been, pretty darn good for this team, just coming out and his ability to score and rebound, and you see the potential, and he's certainly not had his ceiling yet, and I think some fans like expect him already to be this like dominant force, and you have to kind of step back and say, okay, he's still a rookie, but the flashes are definitely there. And so I think overall he's been off to a really strong start for this team.
What's kind of the general like sort of bio story about him for people like us, who are in a different market, who don't know a whole bunch about him? What are kind of the bullet points of like his life and his background and how he has fit into and become a part of the Suns?
Yeah, well, he's originally from the Bahamas, so spent the early part of his life down there, and then came over to the States And he's actually then became like a local Arizona product. He played at a prep school here in Phoenix, played one season at Arizona, and then, obviously was the number one draft pick of the Suns. So he's kind of in this unique lore in that he's a very rare prospect who, spent both his high school, college, and professional start in the same market, basically. Arizona is about an hour and a half away in Tucson, but still basically in the same place. So, yeah, I mean, he kind of was a little bit of a late bloomer, I guess you could say, just because he wasn't, he wasn't on YouTube when he was 10 years old, at some of these AAU tournaments, but was discovered in the Bahamas, came over, and was a pretty dominant force, for both in high school and then obviously in college, and that sort of propelled him to be the number one draft pick. So yeah, he's got kind of a unique background compared to some of the other prospects, but also is a local product as well. So kind of an interesting background for him.
And outside of what he's been doing with basketball, what are some of the things that fans have, picked up on about him, or some of the community things that he's been involved in? Or is he pretty much just like heads down trying to like get used to being in the NBA?
He's definitely done some community events here and there. But what I would say is just he's got a really big personality. He's one of my favorite players to interview on this team, just because he's still kind of, he'll say what's on his mind. And I don't mean he hasn't popped off or been, derogatory about anything, but he will be, he'll be really insightful and really thoughtful and really open about, certain things. I've actually been kind of writing a recurring series about the lessons that he's learned while going up against other, NBA centers for the first time, and, going up against Joel Embiid or going up against Marc Gasol or Nikola Jokic, or put any, top player in there. And he's been really insightful about what he's learned from those matchups. So, but he's also got a huge personality when it comes to, talking about loving video games, and he's got a husky dog that's like his best buddy, and just kind of getting used to life in Phoenix on this level. So no, he's been a really entertaining guy to cover in this locker room, which I obviously appreciate in my job. And he also has a lot of pride in, he wants to be part of this franchise, which was once a very proud NBA franchise, but has obviously, fallen on some pretty tough times over the past decade since the Steve Nash era. He really wants to bring this organization back to prominence. So, obviously it's not going to happen in his rookie season with how the season has gone so far, but he really wants to be part of the resurgence of this organization. And he's vocalized that a number of times. And I think that's just because this is what he's known since he's moved to the States. So, I think that's something that fans have really appreciated, and obviously they share in his hope that he can also help them lead them back to prominence after a tough decade or so.
Can you give an example of one of the things that he's shared with you about things that he's learned from playing up against some of these more dominant or veteran centers? Yeah,
well, I mean, I think probably the biggest thing is how they use their body, whether that's to how they use their body to score, how they use their body to draw fouls, how they are able to square up defensively. He's mentioned that about Nikola Jokic. He's mentioned that about Joel Embiid, who obviously, draws a ton of fouls and is just a total force inside. And, there even sometimes is a little bit of a glimpse of not being starstruck, but when they played Anthony Davis for the first time, he was like, that's who I usually play with in NBA 2K. Just kind of having that realization that it's like, whoa, I'm sharing the floor with these people that I previously only saw on TV or played in a video game. So, like I said, he's very candid about just, soaking all of that in and trying to learn as much as possible. And you even see some progression from, the first time that the Suns play a certain team, and then, the second or third time that they play that team. And then I'll be really interested to see how he looks next season when he has, the full summer to sort of work on his own game and to watch film and to study and to sort of go into his second year knowing what this grind is like and knowing what is required as far as focus and physical, keeping your body right and all of that. So no, it's been kind of, I sort of feel like I'm watching it all unfold as it happens. And that's obviously a really cool thing as a reporter to both, see with your own eyes, but also to kind of get the players' insights about, what they're learning along the way.
It really is so exciting to see them develop, like when you can see it from game to game or from year to year. That's one of the things I love about watching the NBA is just, even though I have absolutely no connection to them, there's just this little pride in me that, that people can learn so much and work so hard and do so well. And I just love watching that. One last question, and before we got to go, that is, so he was the number 1 pick, rookie just coming into the league, and y'all also have a rookie coach. Rookie head coach. I mean, he's been a coach and around for a long time, but this is the first time he's been coaching in the NBA. How is that matchup relationship appear to be going?
Yeah, well, Igor Kokoskov, say that 5 times fast.
I'm not even going to, you notice I didn't even say his name because I was like, I'm going to screw it up.
And like you mentioned, he's been a long-time assistant coach, and so obviously has a great deal of experience on NBA coaching staffs, and actually was in Phoenix for part of the Steve Nash era. But this is really, it's different when you become the head guy for the first time. So, you see him everything from setting his rotations to implementing his philosophies on both the offensive and defensive ends to, dealing with the media sometimes 3 times in one day. He's got to talk to random people like me. And that's all part of it, being like the face of an organization, or one of the faces of an organization. So he's a very stoic and calm man. And so even if he is emotional or he's feeling like really high emotions, he doesn't often show it, at least publicly. So, and he, always appears to be pretty calm. So I think that probably serves him well as he's going through, a tough first season, which he knew he would be walking into a difficult situation. I mean, the Suns have 3 rookies in their starting lineup right now. That's just, pretty unheard of in the NBA, and there's going to be a lot of growing pains there. But, again, no coach is perfect, and he's, I'm sure if you were asked him to, really look back and be candid about things, I'm sure there are certain situations that he wishes he would have done differently and that he will learn from, just like DeAndre Ayton is learning from. But, the organization, because he has experience in this organization, they know, or they knew the young roster that they had, or at least the situation that they're in right now. I think they're going to give him room to try to figure some things out and try to tinker with things here and there. But like I said, certainly the growing pains have stretched to the head coach, but that's kind of just the product of having a young team and figuring things out. But, overall, he came very highly regarded, especially with his, offensive philosophy and all of that. And so I think slowly but surely they will figure it out. But certainly this, the youth among this team also extends to, the inexperience of their head coach as well.
Yeah. As I recall, there have been, multiple games this season where the Suns may have lost or they may have won. And, you can get glimpses of how fun and athletic they can be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy. This team has 11 wins, but they've beaten the Nuggets, they've beaten the Celtics, they've beaten Milwaukee, those last 2 on the road. And so you do see glimpses of like, okay, they have some skills here. And when they're trying to establish an identity of being a really tenacious defensive team with all the length they have on the perimeter. And then obviously Devin Booker is their star on offense. And he's really grown this season, not just as a scorer, but as a facilitator as well. He's got a career high in his assist numbers and is, based on, he's just asked to do so much as far as his usage rate and just everything that he's asked to do on the offensive end. So no, you do see glimpses and you do see just that there's the potential there, but the consistency is not there. And just the youth, shows itself from time to time. So again, I know fans are really frustrated here in Phoenix just about the playoff drought and everything. But, I think there's still, if Ayton continues to develop, if a guy like Mikal Bridges continues to develop, if Booker continues to evolve as a player, then, this could be a promising team here in the future. But, you can't really say that for sure until you start to see some more consistent results. But you do see that you can see what they're trying to do as far as building their core. And then it's just a matter of all growing together and then putting the right pieces around them as well.
I lied. I have one more question. I didn't think I should have asked you about Booker and Ayton, and how does their chemistry seem to be developing in the time that they've played together?
Yeah, pretty good so far. I think they're still learning along the way as well, but it's just kind of a matter of, again, Booker's kind of in a new role this year where he has been asked to distribute more, and he's also been kind of this is a team that lacks point guard experience, so he's had the ball in his hands a lot, and so he's trying to sort of figure out all these new ways to both score and distribute. But as far as their personalities, I think they both understand that they're the anchors of this team, and they are going to kind of be in this together for the next several years. I mean, Booker signed his max extension last summer that will kick in next season, so he's going to be here for a long time. Ayton's going to be here for a long time on his rookie deal, and then if all goes well, he'll sign his max extension in a few years as well. So I think they know that they're in this for the next several years. So everything that I've observed is that they have a strong relationship, and Booker wants Ayton to believe in himself and know how good he can be, and Ayton knows how good Booker is. So yeah, like I said, so far so good as far as that relationship is concerned, and they know they're going to be developing together for several years to come.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me today and for sharing how things are going in Phoenix, especially with regards to the rookie. I have lots more questions, but no more time for them today. So you'll have to just come back on the podcast another time so we can catch up some more. How's that?
That sounds perfect. Again, happy to do it, and say hello to my beloved Portland for me.
Will do. And before we sign off, you want to tell people how they can find your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Twitter handle is just my first name and my last name. So it's Gina Mizell, GinaMizell. And then we are on The Athletic. If you go to the NBA page, you can find all of our Suns content on the drop-down menu. Also on The Athletic AZ is our Twitter handle, and all kinds of different places. So yeah, if you haven't jumped on the Athletic bandwagon yet, I encourage you to do so, because we cover everything in North America. So no matter what sport you like, what teams you like, we've got it all covered.
Awesome. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, next up we're gonna hear from Jill Adge. She gives her takes about the Sacramento Kings and other things around the NBA. And we talked a little bit about how they're feeling about their picking of Marvin Bagley instead of Luka Doncic, which I'm one of those fans who maybe couldn't let go of the Oden Durant situation as much as I thought I had. I woke up from anesthesia at one point recently, and apparently the first words out of my mouth were, "We should have picked Durant," very loudly, until my husband had to explain to all of the nurses what was going on, because I just kept repeating it.
That's so funny, Cassidy.
I thought I was over it. I have a signed Greg Oden shoe in my house. Like, I thought I was over it, but I apparently am not over it. So we checked in a little bit with Jill about how they're feeling, how their young core is doing, and a little bit about the amazing double jump of Marvin Bagley, which is worth checking out if you have not. So it's a fun interview, and we got a chance to check in with, the very surprising Sacramento Kings this season. Well, hi, Jill. Thanks for coming on and talking with us today. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you back. I know Tara got the chance to talk to you before the season started about rookie Marvin Bagley, who the Kings drafted at second. How are you all? How is he fitting in with the team?
I will have to say today is actually the perfect day for it, because he actually had his first start for us of the season. And he finished with 22 points and 11 rebounds. So, exactly what you could ask for the guy coming in, especially playing with guys when he's normally coming off the bench. So, fit in very well with that. But no, he's been everything that was advertised from him, we have seen. His post game is good. He still has to work on the right hand. I mean, but that's being that he's left-handed. So that's something that's pretty normal, I think, for a young big coming into the league, that they're not always, able to do the hook shot with both hands, but that's something that can come. But we have seen it a couple times, so we definitely know it's there in his arsenal once he keeps working on it. But the big thing was his hustle and the style of play that he could bring with our fast guards. And he's fit right into that. He's crazy athletic. We kept hearing about his second and third jump. And to me, like, it was like, okay, we're hearing about it. But when you see it, I mean, it was like, holy crap. I mean, he's getting up his second jump and already, putting it back or dunking on you. And these guys aren't even coming back from their first jump yet. So it's pretty crazy to see when he actually does it. And his defensive skills, I have to say, that was a weakness coming in, at least that we had heard about. But one thing was that, in Duke, and they played zone at times and stuff like that. So it was kind of hard to really know what we were getting. But I would say defensively, he has shown a lot more than we thought we were going to get, at least in the first year. And so you can definitely see that. And a lot of the mistakes he does make, it's not for lack of effort or trying. It might even be he's trying to do too much. So once the game slows down a little bit for him that way, it'll just keep getting better. But I mean, we definitely have our big man of the future there, no doubt. So I think everyone's extremely pleased with what we've seen so far from him.
Yeah, and the Kings have gotten off to a really pretty great start this season. I think to the surprise of a lot of people in the league.
Everybody. It's our it's the first time I want to say we're above 500 in January since 2002 or 2003. So I mean, it's been that long. Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out because I couldn't figure it out from this point in the season where you all were at, but I know there was like a season in maybe like 2002 that was somewhere close, and then I know 2006 was an okay season too, but I don't think it was this great of a start.
No, not at all. So it's been really refreshing, and a lot of the energy is back with the team and with the town, especially when coming in, we just expected that developmental year, and knowing we didn't have a first round draft pick, it was like even worse. And so all the trades you were expecting were going to be, okay, maybe find somebody young and attach someone that has a huge contract to it, try and get a first round pick, something. But the options are really open right now based on how these guys are starting. And we actually are seeing a core develop. And it's crazy when 7 of our 10 rotation guys are in their third year or below. So, I mean, the fact that they're doing what they're doing already this early is super promising, at least from a fan perspective.
Sounds really exciting to be watching from being down there. How do you really... Sorry, I'm a little tired. Just watched the whole Blazer game, so I'm still amped up. Know, right? Still angry. But how is do you feel like the young core you said was doing really well? Do you feel like that has been a huge part of the great start that you've started out with?
Yes, and I would say probably it's basically Fox, Buddy Hield, and Bogey. We call him Bogey for as a nickname, but those 3 are kind of like I'd say our heartbeat of the team. That the way that those 3 go, essentially the team goes. But they're all putting up, career numbers. Especially Fox has had a huge jump in his second year. He's averaging over 17 points a game and is leading this team like crazy. Buddy's shooting 45% from 3. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Wow. And it's to the point where he shoots it and it could be any kind of shot and you just feel it's going in. It's just one of those that, and when he gets so streaky, it's on. But that's also kind of a downfall too, is that I would say he's pretty unselfish. And so a lot of it is we're trying to shoot more, because we know it's there. Yeah. And then Bogey, he's shooting 37% from three, but he's a guy too where he's coming off the bench right now. He could easily be a starter. But he's coming over from Europe. He plays, 1 through 3. And so he can play backup point guard. He can play the 2. He can play the 3. He can control the game that way. And he feeds off the bigs really well in the pick and rolls and just puts him in really good positions, which really helps our young bigs in Bagley and Giles. I mean, he helps get them in the right position. So having these young guards that look and feel comfortable has been huge for these guys.
So it sounds like you guys are happy with Marvin Bagley. Looking back on it and watching Luka Doncic have the season that he's having, how does the does it sting at all? Are you still super happy? Are people still talking about this? Is it over?
It's still I want to say a daily conversation on King's Twitter, and it can get ugly. Most of us try and stay out of it. I mean, I still like the guy. I liked him before, and yes, we didn't take him, but I still enjoy his game now. So, I mean, I know some people are still really bitter about it, but I mean, I can't really complain when, you see the way Bagley's playing and he fits in really well with this team. Yeah. It would have been interesting to see how he fit with these guys, but with the pace we're playing as well, I don't know how he would have fit with that either. So it's kind of hard to tell that way as you see how exhausted these guys get and how fast they really are. Could he play with that style? I don't know. And still be as effective. But I mean, it's been fun watching him, and I really think he landed in the perfect spot there. So, but yeah, it's still a big conversation, and I think it will be in the foreseeable future, depending on how these guys' careers go. But I think if we continue winning him like that, it will become less of a thing.
Well, as a Duke fan, I'm definitely rooting for Bagley to succeed.
And he's so easy to root for.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. He's a good young kid, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think there's ever a chance we're going to see a Marvin Bagley, Dame Dolla music collaboration? Because I know I've seen that he has put out a few things, and I'm wondering if maybe this could be a collaboration that brings Portland and Sacramento a little closer together.
Right, that would be funny. Yeah, and him and Shumpert have put out like a couple Instagram videos where they do it with each other too, because he does his stuff. But it would be interesting to hear those guys for sure. And I think they're two of the better, I would say, in the league of guys that put stuff out. I wouldn't say that they're talented with that at least. So, but yeah, it would be an interesting combo.
Mm-hmm. And I know Portland had the chance. We actually drafted Harry Giles, I think in 2017 with our pick, and we want to check in on how he's doing in Sacramento. How's his season going?
I would say that I'm really happy with everything we're seeing out of Harry, and he is so easy to root for. I mean, when you think of everything that this kid's had to go through already, so young, as a player, having one knee injury, coming back and then hurting the other one. And then he was the number one ranked high school, kid prior to all that stuff. And so we're definitely seeing the skill set and the IQ that was, that made him that number one prospect. Mm-hmm. But then when, at times too, you have to remember when he's on the court that he hasn't played for, around 2 years or so. Yeah. And so the game still is moving really fast for him. And a lot of the mistakes he does make is he's trying too hard or, putting too much, which, it's hard to bag on the guy for that. And so I think when the game does slow down a little bit, it'll be even better for him. But, and going into the season that I think we might have even had unrealistic expectations for him, which is not really fair to him, but he was being hyped up so much by the team, which is understandable. And you'd see the practice flashes and all the players were talking about him, just wait till you see this guy on the court. And you see him make passes and you see his ball handling skills, and you can totally get where they were coming from. But you have to remember too, to give, the kid time. And he's never even had a full legit off season where he's been completely healthy and can just have an off season. So I think, building up his body wise, because he still is pretty skinny compared to a lot of the other big guys out there. But I would say that we're seeing everything that we thought we were going to get out of him. And two, it was, we took him at 20, I believe. And it was kind of if you hit on it, great. And if not, maybe they don't lose anything out of it. Yeah. So I would say everything we're seeing is really exciting from him. And it's, he's such an easy guy to root for, and, hopefully it keeps going well for him. But yeah, I would say that everyone's happy with what they're seeing so far from him. And we're seeing a lot of Bagley and Giles together, where I said today was the first start that Bagley got. For the last maybe 10 games or so, it's been a consistent rotation of Bagley and Giles off the bench. And it is fun seeing those guys come in together. They eat up every rebound, they play hard. Yeah. And they work really well together. So I think you even saw it in the game we played you guys. It was one of their first games where they were together off the bench. So yeah, it's been fun watching those guys grow. So, and you can see where they thought that they were going to be the bigs of our future. So
yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of smart moves made, and you guys are seeing maybe a sneak peek of more things that are fun to come with this team, because it definitely is a fun team to watch play. And that's what I've enjoyed about watching Sacramento so far this season. I haven't gotten to see too many games, but it's definitely been fun games to watch. And they always seem like they're just going for it. And it makes sense that you're talking about the young core, because it all connects that way.
Yeah, and they're playing fast. How long they can keep that up. We've seen it kind of decline a little bit the last 5 games, which is expected, being young and still trying to work out the, 3 games and 5 nights, and, especially playing at that pace. And I think they've had like 3 games in the last 4 on this trip. But so it's how long they can keep up that pace will be interesting. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun seeing people around the league saying how much fun they are to watch, because like I said, it's been a long time since we haven't been the laughing stock of the league. So it is nice to see.
Well, thanks for joining us. Where can people find you online to follow all your fun takes on basketball and more?
Yeah, so they can find me on Twitter at Jill Adge. And so it'd be at JILLADGE. And yeah, I give all my Kings takes and other NBA takes, but mostly Kings.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you again for having me.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the What Podcast, Women's Hoops and Talks. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard, you can find all of our episodes on Blazers Edge. Subscribe to the Blazers Edge podcast feed, and we put out episodes on Thursdays.
And follow the podcast at Hoops and Talks on Twitter. You can find me at Cassidy Gemmet, CassidyGemmet. And Tara is at TCB Biggs with 2 G's. Our guests can be found at Jill Adge and at Gina Mizell.
And, we want to hear from you. So let us know what you think about the show. Tweet us, or you can email us. We have an email that is very creatively, it's going to be a surprise, at hoopsandtalks@gmail.com. So yeah, if you like the show, or if you have any ideas about people who we should have on the show or topics that you'd like us to cover, please let us know, because we want to know what listeners are interested in. Thanks for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you soon.